I still remember the way she looked at me that morning, like I was a stranger she'd grown tired of. Our 10th anniversary was supposed to be the celebration of everything we'd built together. Instead, it became the day everything I knew about love and loyalty was ripped apart. My name is Ethan, and for a decade, I thought I was living the perfect life. I met Emily in college, and from the moment we locked eyes, it felt like fate. We built a life together, a small house on the edge of town, a quiet garden where she planted roses, and countless memories of laughter and love. I thought we had it all. Our anniversary morning started like any other. I woke up early, ready to surprise her with breakfast in bed, freshly brewed coffee, homemade pancakes, and the little silver bracelet I'd been saving up for. But when I walked into the kitchen, she wasn't there. I found her by the window, staring out with a blank expression that made my stomach drop. "Emily?" I said softly, but she didn't turn around. She just kept staring out at the rain. When she finally faced me, her eyes were cold. "I can't do this anymore, Ethan," she said in a voice that didn't sound like hers. My mind raced, trying to make sense of her words, but nothing could prepare me for what came next. "I'm leaving you," she said, her voice as calm as if she were discussing the weather. "I've met someone else." The words felt like a slap to the face. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her see how much this would destroy us. But my throat closed up. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set the tray down on the counter. I'd planned to give her the bracelet, a symbol of the life I thought we shared. Now it felt like a cruel joke. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "It doesn't matter," she replied, looking away. "What matters is that I'm done pretending." The worst part wasn't that she was leaving, it was the indifference in her eyes. The years we'd spent together, the promises we'd made, they meant nothing to her now. I felt like the floor had disappeared from under me. All those memories, the nights we held each other close, the mornings we woke up laughing, they were shattered. I didn't have the strength to argue. She packed her bags while I stood there frozen, watching the woman I loved walk out of my life on the day we were supposed to celebrate our love. As the door closed behind her, I sank to the floor, the cold tiles pressing against my palms. I felt like a fool, betrayed, humiliated, and left alone in the ruins of everything I thought was real. That was the moment I knew my life would never be the same again. The days that followed felt like I was living in a fog, each breath a struggle, every heartbeat a painful reminder that the woman I loved was gone. I wandered the house like a ghost, unable to bring myself to touch her things. Her coffee mug still sat on the counter, lipstick stained and half full. Her perfume lingered in the hallway, a scent that felt like a cruel echo of what used to be. Itsatitiur. First, I tried to tell myself it was a phase, that she'd come back to her senses, but every time I closed my eyes I saw her face, cold, distant, and unmoved. My friends called to check on me, but I didn't answer. What could I say? That my wife had walked out on me on our anniversary and left me for someone else? The words tasted bitter, too painful to speak aloud. Late at night, I'd sit in the dark, clutching the bracelet I never got to give her. I thought about the little moments we shared, movie nights, inside jokes, stolen kisses. All of it felt like a lie now. My heart was a battlefield of rage and heartbreak, and I didn't know which side would win. Then the small things started to gnaw at me. I remembered how for the past few months she'd been glued to her phone, her laughter ringing hollow as she texted someone she wouldn't name. She'd started staying out late, claiming she was working extra hours, but her eyes told another story. I dismissed it then, too trusting, or maybe too scared, to see what was right in front of me. One night, I found her old phone charger in the drawer. She'd switched to a new phone a few weeks back, but this one was still plugged in behind the couch. Something in me snapped. I needed to know. I turned it on, my hands trembling. The screen flickered to life, and I scrolled through her messages. Most were innocuous, grocery lists, reminders, and work notes. But then, I saw a string of messages from an unknown number, hidden in a folder she must have thought I'd never find. Can't wait to see you tonight. I miss you. Don't worry about him. He'll be fine. Each word was like a blade, slicing deeper into the wound. My mind raced as I read through the thread, casual words exchanged with a familiarity that made my skin crawl. She'd been living a double life, smiling at me by day and slipping into his arms by night. I didn't recognize the number, but the more I read, the clearer it became. She hadn't just fallen for someone else. She'd been building a new life without me even as I was trying to keep ours together. I wanted to confront her, to demand answers, but she was gone. So I did the only thing I could. I started looking for clues. I began to notice things I'd been too blind to see before, the way she'd stopped wearing the necklace I gave her, the sudden interest in fitness she never mentioned to me. Her favorite wine was replaced with a new brand I'd never seen before. It was like she'd been shedding our life, one small piece at a time. I tried to reach out to her friends, but they were tight-lipped, offering vague platitudes that only fueled my suspicion. I started to feel like I was losing my mind, chasing shadows that might not even be real. But every night, those messages echoed in my head, whispering that there was more to this than she ever let on. One evening, I saw her car parked outside, a little cafe on the edge of town. My heart pounded as I watched from a distance, hidden in the shadows. She was inside, laughing with a man I'd never seen before, tall, well-dressed, the kind of man who looked like he had it all together. Their heads were close, his hand brushing hers in a way that made my stomach turn. I felt the sting of betrayal all over again, sharper this time, because now I could see it. The truth was there, undeniable and raw. But I still didn't know everything. Who was he? How long had it been going on? Why wasn't I enough? I drove home that night with a storm raging inside me. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Part of me wanted to storm in and confront them, to demand she tell me the truth. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. I needed more. I needed proof. And as much as it tore me apart, I was determined to find it, because I couldn't stand the thought of living in the dark any longer. I didn't sleep much after that night at the cafe. My mind was a battlefield of memories and suspicions, each one urging me to dig deeper. I'd spent so long being the husband who trusted too easily, who believed in love even when it was crumbling in his hands. But that version of me was gone. In his place was a man driven by a need for the truth. The next morning, I began my quiet investigation. It felt surreal, like I was living a double life myself, playing the detective in a story I never asked to be part of. I started with the bank statements. Emily and I had always shared an account. No secrets, no hidden debts. But lately there had been withdrawals I couldn't explain, hundreds of dollars at a time spent at restaurants and hotels I'd never heard of. I remember staring at the statement, my hand shaking as I traced the dates. The charges lined up too perfectly with the nights she claimed she was working late. My heart sank as I realized she'd been using the money we built together, our savings, our dreams, to fund her affair. It was more than betrayal. It was theft, a gut punch that left me gasping for air. But I didn't let the shock stop me. I took screenshots, printing them out and tucking them into a folder I hid in the back of my closet. Every piece of evidence felt like armor, a shield to protect me from the lies she'd tried to drown me in. Next, I turned to her social media. I'd never been the type to snoop. It always felt like a violation of trust. But now, trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. She'd been careful, her posts still filled with photos of us smiling together, painting a perfect picture for the world. But when I looked closer, I saw the cracks. In the background of one photo, I noticed a man's hand resting on her waist, a hand that wasn't mine. Another post showed her at a fancy restaurant, her glass raised in a toast. The caption now read, "A night to remember." I wondered if she was talking about him. I kept going, scrolling through every comment, every like, looking for signs. I even created a fake account to follow the man I'd seen at the cafe. His profile was full of photos from exotic vacations, dinners at expensive restaurants, always with the same woman whose face was just out of frame, my wife. Every discovery hurt, but it also gave me clarity. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. She was lying to me, living a life I wasn't part of anymore. I knew I couldn't confront her yet, not without risking her shutting me out completely. I needed more than suspicion and half-truths. I needed undeniable proof. I called up an old friend from college, Tom, a private investigator who'd left his corporate job years ago. I told him everything, my voice shaking as I recounted the nights she was gone, the messages I'd found, the man at the cafe. Tom listened in silence, and when I finished, he said, "Ethan, I'll help you, but you have to be ready for what I find." I was ready. I'd been living in a nightmare for too long, and I wanted to wake up, even if the truth was ugly. Over the next few days, Tom started gathering information. He sent me updates and coded texts, photos of Emily and that man, their faces close, in a way that left no room for doubt. He even found hotel records, reservations under fake names. Each new piece of evidence was another crack in the image I'd held of her, a reminder that the woman I thought I knew was gone. But even as I pieced together the truth, I was fighting a war inside myself. There were moments when I'd see her face in my mind and remember the way she used to laugh at my jokes, how she'd fall asleep with her head on my chest. I'd wonder if I'd done something wrong, if I'd driven her into his arms. Guilt was a poison I couldn't shake. At night, I'd lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my heart torn between anger and heartbreak. I wanted to hate her, but part of me still loved the woman she used to be. Part of me wanted to believe there was still something worth saving. But every time that thought crept in, I'd look at the folder in my closet, the bank statements, the photos, the texts, and I'd remember that the only person I needed to save was myself. I started planning my next move, quietly, carefully. I couldn't let her know what I knew. If I confronted her too soon, she'd deny it all. She'd twist the truth until I was the villain in her story. I wouldn't give her that chance. I stopped wearing my wedding ring. It felt like a lie I couldn't carry anymore. When people asked where Emily was, I just said she was away for work. It was easier than admitting the truth, that my marriage was over and I was the only one who didn't see it coming. But in the quiet hours of the night, I promised myself that this wasn't the end of my story. She'd thought she could erase me, replace me with someone who made her feel new and exciting. But I wasn't going to fade into the background. I was going to make sure she saw me. I was going to take back my dignity, piece by piece, until there was nothing left of the man she'd tried to break. And when the time came to confront her, I'd be ready, with the truth in my hands and the strength to face whatever came next. Remember the exact moment I decided I couldn't live in the shadows anymore. I was done pretending everything was fine, done playing the fool in a story that was never mine to begin with. I'd spent weeks gathering evidence, watching from the sidelines as she built a life with him. But I wasn't going to stay silent any longer. It was a Sunday afternoon, the kind of bright golden day we used to spend in the garden. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at the man I'd become. My eyes were tired, but there was a fire in them that hadn't been there before. I slipped on a fresh shirt and tucked the folder of evidence under my arm. Today wasn't about heartbreak. Today was about truth. Emily was at that same little cafe I'd seen her in before. I'd called her that morning, told her I wanted to talk. She didn't know I'd already seen everything, the photos, the reservations, the messages that left no room for doubt. She agreed to meet me, her voice cool and polite, as if I were a stranger. I walked in and spotted her immediately, sitting at a corner table, a cup of tea in front of her. She looked up and offered a small smile, the kind she used to save for me. My stomach twisted at the sight of it. "Ethan," she said softly, "you look good." "Save it," I said, pulling out the chair across from her. I didn't want small talk. I wanted the truth. She frowned, confusion flickering across her face. "What's going on?" I set the folder on the table and pushed it toward her. "Open it." She hesitated, her fingers trembling as she reached for the papers. One by one, she flipped through them, photos of her and the man, hotel receipts, screenshots of messages she thought I'd never see. With each turn of the page, her face paled. "This This isn't what it looks like, she stammered, but her voice was weak. Don't lie to me, I said, my voice cold and steady. I know everything, Emily. I know about him. I know how long it's been going on. I know how you used our money to pay for your lies. Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. Ethan, I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she whispered. I was lonely. I didn't think you'd understand. Understand? I leaned forward, my hands flat on the table. I gave you everything. My trust, my love, my whole damn life. And you threw it all away for someone else. She looked down, her tears slipping down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she said, but it sounded hollow. I didn't know how to end it. I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't want to hurt me? My voice cracked, the rage I'd been holding back finally breaking through. You've been lying to me for months, sneaking around behind my back, and you think saying sorry is enough? The cafe was silent around us, the other patrons glancing over but quickly looking away. I didn't care. Let them see. Let them hear. I wanted the whole world to know who she really was. I don't want your apologies, I said, my voice low and shaking. I want you to own what you did. I want you to admit it to my face. She wiped her eyes and took a shaky breath. I fell out of love with you, Ethan. I didn't mean to, but I did. And then I met him, and he made me feel alive again. I'm so sorry. The finality in her voice was like a punch to the gut. I'd been clinging to some small hope that maybe she'd come back, that maybe this was all a terrible mistake. But those words killed that hope for good. I nodded slowly, feeling the weight of it settle in my chest. I see, I said quietly. I guess there's nothing left to say then. She reached across the table, but I pulled my hand away. Don't, I said sharply. You don't get to comfort me now. I stood up, the folder still in front of her. Keep it, I told her. Look at it whenever you try to convince yourself this was all okay. That it was worth it. She looked up at me, her eyes wide and pleading. What are you going to do? I took a deep breath, feeling a calm I hadn't felt in weeks. I'm going to move on. I'm going to rebuild my life without you, and I'm going to make damn sure you see me happy again. With that, I turned and walked out of the cafe, my heart pounding but my steps steady. Outside, the sun was still shining, the world still turning. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I knew she was watching me, her world crumbling around her while mine was finally starting to heal, and that was all the closure I needed. In the days that followed, the ripple effects of that confrontation spread out like shock waves. Emily's affair wasn't a secret anymore, not to me, and not to the people who'd once believed in the perfect marriage we'd painted for the world. Word got around quickly, as it always does in a small town. The whispers, the sideways glances, they didn't bother me as much as I thought they would. I'd lived with her lies long enough. The truth felt like a relief. Emily tried to reach out to me, sending long messages filled with apologies and explanations I couldn't bring myself to read. She even came by the house once, standing at the door with tears in her eyes. But I didn't open it. I watched her through the window, feeling a flicker of the old pain, but I didn't let it in. That chapter was closed. Her reputation took a hit. Friends she'd lied to turned away from her, and the new life she'd been so eager to build with him wasn't as perfect as she'd imagined. I heard through the grapevine that the man she'd left me for wasn't sticking around. Maybe he saw her in a different light now, or maybe he'd never intended for her to be anything more than a temporary escape. Whatever the reason, she was alone, left with the consequences of the choices she'd made. For me, there was no dramatic revenge or public humiliation. I didn't need it. The truth was enough. The relief of finally seeing her for who she was, and no longer needing her to be anything else, was more powerful than any payback. Still, the nights were the hardest. I'd wake up in the dark, my hand reaching for her side of the bed before I remembered it was empty. Some mornings, I'd stand in the kitchen and almost expect her to walk in, her hair a mess and her smile warm. The memories didn't vanish overnight, and neither did the ache in my chest. But I was stronger now. Each day I found a little more of myself in the quiet spaces she used to fill. I started going for runs in the mornings, feeling my heart pound with something other than grief. I reconnected with old friends, people I'd lost touch with while trying to keep a broken marriage alive. I laughed again, real, gut-deep laughter that felt like a promise to myself. The pain didn't disappear, but it changed. It became something I could carry, a scar that reminded me of what I'd survived. I wasn't the same man who had stood in the kitchen that anniversary morning, blinded by love and trust. I was someone new, someone who knew his own worth. And though the betrayal still stung in the quiet moments, it no longer defined me. I was free. Free to build a life that was mine alone, with no shadows or secrets to hold me back. In the weeks and months that followed, I began to rebuild the pieces of my life. Slowly, carefully, but with a determination that felt stronger than anything I'd known before. The house, once filled with her laughter and her perfume, felt emptier at first, a hollow reminder of everything I'd lost. But over time, that emptiness became something else, a space for me to fill with my own purpose and peace. I took the photos of us down from the walls. At first it felt like erasing memories, but I realized it wasn't about forgetting. It was about making room for new beginnings. I filled the walls with things that mattered to me, landscapes I'd always loved, old records from my college days, little pieces of art that reminded me of who I used to be and who I was becoming again. My routines shifted too. I stopped waking up every day feeling like I was bracing for heartbreak. Mornings became moments of quiet strength, coffee on the porch as the sun rose, a new book in my hands, and a sense of calm that had been missing for far too long. I found comfort in the simplicity of those moments, proof that life could still be beautiful even after being broken. I went back to the things I'd set aside for so long. I started painting again, something I'd abandoned when Emily and I got caught up in careers and responsibilities. My canvases became a safe place to pour out the last of my hurt and find color in the aftermath. Each stroke of the brush felt like a small act of healing. I reconnected with people who'd been there for me all along, friends who listened without judgment, who made me laugh until I forgot, even if just for a moment. I realized how much I'd isolated myself trying to hold on to a marriage that was already gone. Those connections became a lifeline, a reminder that I wasn't alone. And somewhere along the way, I began to feel something I hadn't in a long time. Hope. Hope that life could be more than survival. Hope that I was more than the sum of my heartbreak. I met someone new too. It wasn't planned. It never is. She was a friend of a friend, someone I'd bumped into at a gallery opening one night. Her smile was easy, her laugh genuine. There were no grand declarations, no promises whispered in the dark. Just two people sharing stories, finding comfort in the small things, a walk in the park, coffee at dawn. With her, I didn't feel like I had to be anything but myself. It wasn't about filling the void Emily left. It was about finding joy again, on my own terms. About realizing that love, real love, doesn't come from desperation or secrets. It comes from trust and honesty, and the quiet confidence that you're enough, just as you are. I still think about Emily sometimes, how it all fell apart, how I let myself believe in something that was never really mine. But the memories don't hurt the way they used to. They're like old scars, reminders of the battles I've fought and survived. I know now that I'm stronger than the heartbreak she left behind. I'm wiser for the pain, and I'm softer too, more willing to see the good in people but never blind to the truth again. This is my new life, built on honesty, on hard-won lessons, and on the quiet belief that even the deepest wounds can heal. And in the quiet of those early mornings, when the world feels brand new, I know that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. In the end, I learned that the worst betrayals don't just break your heart. They shatter the image of yourself you thought was real, but in those shattered pieces, you find the truth about who you are and what you're capable of. You find the quiet strength to stand back up and say, "This is not the end of me." It would be easy to let bitterness take root in my heart, to let Emily's lies become the lens through which I see the world. But I chose something else. I chose to see the lesson in the pain, to understand that trust is a gift, and when someone betrays it, they don't get to define who you are. Only you can do that. For a long time, I thought loving someone meant giving them every part of me, no questions asked. I know better now. Real love, true love, requires honesty, respect, and the willingness to show up, even when it's hard. Anything less is just an illusion. I've learned to forgive, not for her sake, but for mine. Because forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean excusing the hurt. It means refusing to let someone else's betrayal control your story. It means choosing to walk forward with your head held high, even if your heart still carries the weight of what was lost. And maybe that's what resilience really is. Not never feeling the pain, but refusing to let it define you. Refusing to let it keep you from the quiet moments of joy, the laughter of friends, or the simple beauty of a sunrise that feels like hope. I still carry the memory of that anniversary morning. The sting of her words. The cold finality of her leaving. But it doesn't haunt me anymore. It's just part of my story. One chapter in a life that's bigger and braver than I ever imagined it could be. So if you're reading this and your heart is heavy with betrayal, know this. You are more than the hurt you've endured. You are stronger than the lies that tried to break you. And you have the power to build something beautiful from the ashes of what fell apart. Because in the end, the greatest triumph isn't in holding on. It's in letting go.